So you want to start airbrushing. What's that you say? You have no idea where to start? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you everything you need to know about what airbrush to buy and how to use it. This is, of course, my own opinion based on nearly 50 years of trial and error, mainly error. So if you're new to airbrushing or a seasoned veteran, this video should have something for all of you. Do you need a $300 airbrush to get great results? Not necessarily. That would be like buying the most expensive set of golf clubs and never have played before. Using that scenario and applying it to the purchase of an airbrush probably wouldn't be the wisest thing to do when you're just starting out. I'd start off with a mid-grade airbrush, and I'd probably try and stay away from those $20 to $50 airbrushes you see a lot online. From the evidence I've seen from other people buying these airbrushes, more than likely these airbrushes will only give you grief. If you do a little research beforehand, either on Amazon or on a specific airbrush company's site, you can find some really decent airbrushes at an affordable price. The type of airbrushes I prefer are these double action gravity fed type. For years now, I've used this Iwata HPCH Highline airbrush, and more recently this Iwata Neo, which is a very decent airbrush at an affordable price. I bought the Neo specifically for its 0.35 millimeter needle size for better detail paint. But to be honest, I usually go back to my HPCH airbrush for that. I suppose this is a good time to mention the sponsor of this video, and that's Gallery Airbrushes. I should also let you know if you do decide to buy this airbrush or anything else from Gallery, you'll get a nice 10% discount on anything you buy. And I've linked that below in the description. The first thing we need to do is take a look at this Gallery airbrush, then we'll get into all the tips, techniques, and how to use it. All right, let's take a look and see what's in this box. Customer card, how to use the airbrush and spraying patterns to avoid, and we're going to get into all that later on in the video. There's a couple things with this airbrush that I think I'm going to really like. One is the fact that you get extra seals so that when they wear out, you can replace them, because a lot of times you don't get extra seals with other airbrushes. My color cup, very nicely polished overall, and the airbrush itself. There are several types of airbrushes, but the two most common are single action siphon fed, like this Pache H, and double action gravity fed, like these ones shown here. What does dual action gravity fed actually mean? Gravity refers to the paint that's pushed through the cup and out through the nozzle. Dual action refers to the trigger. When you push it down, it releases air, and pulling back gives you paint. Thus the dual action moniker. Quite simply, the air comes from below, and together they atomize the paint, and it sprays out the nozzle. You'll need an airbrush, obviously, an airbrush hose, and some kind of compressed air. Something like this is ideal. I would strongly suggest a compressor with a tank, a regulator, and a moisture trap. I prefer this model, but really any airbrush compressor with these three features on it will be your best bet for optimal airbrush performance. The first gauge shows the tank's pressure, and the second gauge indicates PSI, what your airbrush will be spraying at. By turning the knob, I can dial it higher or lower, depending on the pressure needed for a specific task. Like I said earlier, there are double action and single action. Double action we already talked about, so let me explain what single action does. This is the Pache H single action airbrush. The paint is siphoned from the bottom, then atomized at the tip.
The trigger allows you to push down for air. And you can control the mix by turning the body of the needle to get a finer or wider line. A single action airbrush is a good choice if you're just starting out. So what paints do I use and what paints can I use? You can use any paint as long as it's thinned properly. You can use acrylic, enamel, or lacquer-based paints. It really comes down to personal preference, so experiment with different types to find out what works for you. Tamiya is an acrylic lacquer-based paint, which I personally prefer when spraying. For acrylics, most brands will work, but I prefer Vallejo or AK Gen 3 paints. And if you're hardcore and you don't mind the smell, you can use these enamel paints. Each brand comes with its own specific thinner, and I would suggest you stick with the thinner that's made for that particular paint. That way you can avoid any problems that may occur in the mixing process. I would also suggest you get some kind of flow improver, like this Vallejo type. Flow improver breaks down the surface tension in the paint, causing it to flow more easily. And it can aid in tip dry as well. Tip dry is a common issue when airbrushing. That's when the tip of the needle gets paint buildup, causing the paint to stop flowing. This is simply fixed with a toothbrush, a soft paintbrush, or a Q-tip moistened in thinner or water. And your airbrush will be back to spraying as normal. Getting the thinning ratio between paint and thinner really comes down to personal preference and experimentation. For beginners just starting out, I would suggest getting the paint to the consistency of skim milk. That should get you started. For fine lines, you'll need to thin the paint a lot more, and your PSI on the compressor will need to be much lower. For priming and base coating, generally your air pressure should be between 10 and 15 PSI. For fine line or detail painting, I like to dial it back to about 5 or 6 PSI. But again, it really comes down to experimentation to get it right, for you and your airbrush to be happy. The first thing I do before adding paint is add a few drops of thinner to lubricate the brush. This will also help loosen any material that was left over from the previous spraying session. For the most part, I mix my paint in a separate container rather than in the cup itself. This helps ensure that no contaminant will get into the paint and clog the tip. I've seen others suggesting to cover the tip with your finger, then pull the trigger back to mix it. I would suggest you don't do this, as you're forcing the paint back into the body of the brush, thus causing possibly an array of other problems. One being, now you have to break the brush down and clean all the back components. It could also get into the air valve and dry. Then you're really screwed. So just don't do it. There's a couple features of this airbrush that we should talk about first. This is the MAC valve. It fine-tunes the pressure coming from your compressor. This helps fine-tune the amount of air getting to the tip. The fluid control knob allows how far the needle can be pulled back by the trigger. This enables maximum or minimum paint flow. Once the model has been dusted and cleaned, the first thing we need to do is prime the model. Some modelers go straight to plastic, but my experiences with paint not sticking has since made this a ritual. Primer helps not only with adhesion, but will show any surface imperfections that you can take care of before going to the finish coat. By removing the air cap, this increases your ability to spray finer lines. However, I would discourage any of you new to airbrushing to do this, as you may bend the needle. This is the first time I've used this airbrush, and I'm not really used to using it, so this is probably not my best work. I just want to show you all what you can do with this brush and how much detail you can achieve. As you can see so far, the lines are pretty tight and I'm able to get in nice and close without any spatters or spidering. And it sprays pencil fine lines like a champ. This airbrush was designed to be more of a fine detail brush, but it also handles large scale projects as well. You can see here how it's able to blend and disperse the paint in larger amounts. achieving perfect transitions and yet still able to dial back for some fine detail. Not a bad start at all for a couple minutes of work. These are some basic things you'll need when cleaning your airbrush. Paper points are one of the most useful tools for cleaning your airbrush. They work best at cleaning out those small nozzle tips found on most airbrushes. These come in handy sometimes for cleaning out the needle chucking guide, as well as these interdental tools. You'll also need some airbrush cleaner. It really depends on what type of paint you're using. You'll also need some kind of container to hold the discarded paint. The first thing you want to do after spraying is give the cup a thorough clean. This ensures that none of the hardened paint will enter the nozzle tip. Don't spray this paint through your airbrush, discard it into your dump pot. Then repeat as necessary. Once the cup is clean and free of contaminants, you can now spray clean thinner through it. When your airbrush is now spraying clear liquid, you're good to go. If your airbrush is like mine, you need a small wrench to remove this nozzle tip. And to be honest, I find it a little bit annoying. The Gallery Mobius line has a much different system. The nozzle floats freely in the nozzle cap and you don't need any tools to remove it. This makes breakdown and cleaning way easier in my opinion. The first thing I do is remove the color cup and give it a good clean. Next is the handle. I then loosen the needle chucking nut and draw the needle back a bit. Then the nozzle cap can be removed without damaging the needle tip. The nozzle cap, and air cap can now be disassembled. I like to remove the needle from the front. This avoids any paint being drawn in through the back of the body. Next, I remove the needle chucking nut, main lever adjustment knob, spring case, and needle chucking guide. Pop the main lever out and you're ready for a thorough clean. Areas that may need a deeper clean are the interior of the body, inside the paint reservoir, and definitely the needle. You don't want any dried paint on that. And finally the nozzle. This is where those paper points really shine. And with that, you can sleep at night knowing your airbrush is thoroughly clean. Now follow the same steps to reassemble it. For those of you that are new to airbrushing and you are going to disassemble your airbrush for cleaning, I would suggest making a video of you taking it apart. That way when you reassemble it, you'll have something to go off. And for those of you worried about that needle tip, return the needle through the front of the airbrush. This will guarantee a safe and undamaged needle. With the way they've designed the nozzle on this Gallery airbrush, it makes it super simple. Taking your airbrush apart and putting it back together is just part of the deal you made when you bought your airbrush. So if you want your airbrush to stay clean and work properly, it's just something you'll need to do. This is a little tip that'll save you money and time. One thing you never want to do is let the trigger snap back into the nozzle tip. By doing this, the needle acts as an arrow and it'll either split or crack the nozzle tip, which is a very delicate component of your airbrush.
You and your airbrush will thank me. Believe me, I've done it before.
So, what are my final thoughts on this airbrush? Well, I can sum it up in 2 words. Simply awesome. It performed as well, actually to be honest, even better than my Iwata airbrushes. And you can't beat the price for the quality you're getting here. From what I've shown you in the demos, I think you'll agree it's hard not to like this airbrush. Alright, if you like this airbrush and you want to purchase one of your own, I've linked this code down below in the description and you'll get a nice 10% discount on anything Gallery sells. It is an affiliate link. I'll make a small commission, which helps in the costs associated with creating videos just like this. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing, hit the bell notification, but most importantly, give this video a like. That's what really helps to grow the channel. YouTube will then suggest this video to others interested in this same kind of content. That's all for now. Check out these other videos, and I'll see you in the next one.